the origins of the band was in the clubs. You know, we were all underage at that stage, but we were working in the RSLs and the poker machine dens. I guess they weren't so big in those days. And I'm afraid the club life is sort of existing, thinking that this is where you're going to spend the rest of your life wasn't too appealing, I don't think. So,
who was the original lineup?
Well, me and Bill and Tony Buggy were the original members.
Who played drums?
That are still with us. Nicky Freeman, who still lives in Wagga.
He does.
Yeah.
And it was Ronnie Burt, wasn't it, who used to sing for our band, Promethean Heat. Was your singer for the first singer for TODE, wasn't it?
And this is where the genealogy becomes fascinating. There's just all these tentacles stretching far and wide, and we're only 17 at this stage, you know.
And what are the odds of having two hairdressers in the one band?
Yeah.
That's a pretty Nicky.
That's right.
Music were you playing in the clubs?
Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, jambalaya, the sorts of things that punters, you know.
Which are actually all good songs, but
nothing wrong with that.
For young dudes, it was a bit boring.
Not there's anything wrong with that, but no, we wanted to get, you know, a bit more musical stimulation, shall we say, and with artists such as Herbie Hancock releasing, you know, pivotal albums like what was it called, Headhunters. Steely Dan were big around those times, and we wanted to be a little bit more like that, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Santana.
Very big influence in those days for us, I think. So I guess the pivotal change was when Tony Buggy left town, because of course he was in college in Wagga Wagga, and he left town, so that band ended, and Gil and I were looking for something to do, I suppose.
Yeah. And somehow we inherited the name. I don't know how that happened. That's probably because we made it up, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know either. But yes,
so when did Mally come into the band?
Basically then.
At that point.
So this when Tony left?
That's right. Yeah.
Why were you doing music anyway?
Because it was cool and there were lots of chicks to get.
Yeah, look, there was no choice for us. I think I can speak to all of us. We were just totally driven, I think. There's nothing else you could do. You certainly weren't.
The collection.
Yeah, I don't think it was really, maybe initially about when you're 14, I suppose, the thought of fame and the girls, but that didn't last long. Once you realised you could actually play an instrument, and all of a sudden you were just in love with it, with the actual creating and making music. And wow, I can do this, I can express emotion. And that's what TODE wanted to do then. We wanted to just write our own stuff. And we sort of started doing that, didn't we? In bits and pieces.
Well,
jazz band boogie.
1, 2,
TODE certainly took all that to a different level.
Well, Bill pulled out a whole bunch of old tapes I hadn't heard for many years, obviously, and I'd forgotten how out there it was with all these time signature changes we were experimenting with. And at that stage, that was when Blow by Blow came out, Jeff Beck. This is the fusion of jazz and rock, and I think we thought this is we're gonna try and not capitalise on this or exploit it, but this is for us. This is. And there was an inevitable or invariably there was a Latin kind of influence through Santana. So all those kind of things were happening at that stage.
And the heavier influences on Klaus, really, wasn't it? So it was, we had a bit of a clash of things which took us to a different level.
Well, because I'd had my little band Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Do you remember that at that stage?
Yeah,
and
with Dave and
Dave and John Maloney on drums, and I think Mick Genner might have played guitar for a little bit, but it was basically a three-piece most of the time. And that was just heavy rock, really, like heavy rock with my big Marshall stack and the Gibson.
Hendrix revisited.
And then I joined these boys, and it was like a culture shock, having to play subtly and Santana, who's that? And it was fantastic for me, because it just opened this whole other world of sounds and chords and the whole, rhythms.
I wanna play the jazz band, baby, oh yeah. I wanna play the jazz band, baby, oh yeah. I wanna play the jazz band, baby, oh yeah. I wanna play the jazz band, baby, oh yeah.
How big was Wagga at that stage, and what was the audience for this music?
I think, thank God for the college, eh?
Wagga was a pretty special place. Geographically, halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, bands going up and down the Hume Highway, they would always stop off. We had the college, we had a really high proportion of the population was young. People wanted to,
The Raffies, the Sprogs.
And I have to say, it wasn't until we were introduced, the MCs last night introduced the two bands, and both of them made a comment about their high school days. And I can't quite remember the context of it, but they acknowledged the fact that TODE had a big influence on them back in those days. So clearly it was a little pond, and we were quite a reasonably well-known fish at that stage. So
It was the college scene that embraced that more left-of-field
Space rock
type of music that we played, because it wasn't mainstream stuff that we were getting into. And the college kids seemed to eat that stuff up, so consequently we did... Because we didn't do that many gigs, our version of TODE, did we really? Your version might have, but, especially after Mally, with we did a lot of writing and a lot of sitting around and singing and doing all that sort of stuff and recording. But the gigs were sort of pretty selective.
Yeah.
You did the big concert at the Civic Theatre, I remember.
Yeah.
And you started with the Green Lights in Space thing, which we started with last night.
last night, part of it, yeah.
A version of, yes.
But I wasn't a member of TODE at that stage. But
What were you doing?
what was I doing? I don't know.
I'll
tell you what I was doing. I was working with
Bill.
Pat Gagan and Bill at Abraxas, the music shop. That was my first
Teaching
gig, really.
guitar.
Teaching and selling instruments and dealing with the public. Which
Chasing
I did well
girls.
at. Bill, didn't I? I did all right there, mate.
So teaching guitar.
And eventually playing in some, was it Canyon or some local band I do. And the boys were friends of mine, so I'd always go and see them play. And that particular gig I really loved. It was a really new thing for Wagga to hear music like that. It was,
Because we'd actually
it wasn't top 40, it wasn't anything to do with anything, it was really from the heart.
And that was probably as close as we got to Pink Floyd, really, because we were never really influenced by them, but because we put a piece of music together that
That's right. That's
ran
all
for
it
maybe
was.
20 minutes,
That's all it was.
and that sort of had segues from bits to
A
bits.
little mini rock opera that didn't really...
That took us months to do that too, didn't it?
Gil and I sat and wrote those lyrics in Laser Avenue. You were fired up with all the jams, and all we did was structure all these jams.
Yeah, that's right, into a coherent...
And we had a recording facility so we could actually record it and listen to it and, feedback. We had that feedback loop happening. Because up until then, TODE was just mostly jamming, wasn't it?
That's right,
That's correct. Yes.
The musical background of you guys, I mean, you're talking about teaching guitar
And working with Pat,
and working with Pat. So where does this knowledge of guitar teaching come from?
Comes from absolutely nowhere. I tell you what, when you do that, it's like the blind leading the blind. And as you go back and you think about it, you want to absolutely return every bit of money you ever got paid for. and why Pat Gagan, who I'll see tomorrow by the way, ever had any faith in him in teaching guitar, I'll never know. But I would get up there and teach green sleeves or anything I could remember.
God bless Pat too, eh?
And look, I'll tell you, it was years later for me that I actually learnt the craft of music. A long time, playing guitar anyway. Something wasn't there.
No wonder I'm
You know.
such a shit.
So you learned the craft of scanning earlier.
Oh, well, look, we always used to sit around. We would sit around in the kitchen all the time, like a lot of people would. We'd sit around the kitchen for hour after hour and just play with Steely Dan stuff.
Mick could
Santana
get home at
stuff.
12:30 after playing with Canyon, and I'd slap a guitar in his hands and say, "Hey, play, Mickey." Oh, Jesus! 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd still be playing.
Yeah, and we'd just play. And my relationship with Klaus was from when we were about 13 at school. I mean, he was a fantastic player, and I was just learning. So, you know, it was just such. It was one of those things. I'd go to Klaus's place in the afternoon. So the fraternity of guitar playing was really good.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of guitar playing together, Klaus and I, loads and loads, and it was beneficial. Really, really was. But anyway, I wasn't involved with TODE at that stage. It was when the move to Melbourne came, and Bill decided to stay in Wagga, and so I flew down there, and we started a new kind of TODE.
Craig, you with singing, where did that come from?
Singing. My mum and dad were singers in Wagga. Musical comedy. Lots of musical comedy in the 60s. Every year they do a show. So, you know, I grew up in the back of the theatre watching them do this stuff. And Dave Doyle, John Maloney, Larry O'Shea, Dave
Larry
Doyle.
O'Shea, the tall dude.
Yeah, in a band called Freelance. The same time as Promethean Heat was happening.
Mango's Theme by Blackfella.
Yeah. So, you know, we did Falling and
You know it?
Autumn Songs and Tie a Yellow Ribbon and shit, you know. After that was Twig and John Maloney, Mick Genner, sort of Rumpelstiltskin, folded, and then we picked them up.
I can't remember
You know,
this.
Colin Gully pub, we were playing all that sort of, the skirts of the town, you know, we were travelling out of town to do it. And then, and Mally died. Got fucking
Tony's
killed.
brother, yeah.
So the first singer for TODE got
That was just
run over on a
such
motorbike
shock, yeah.
by a taxi.
So, you know, a few weeks later, I've joined the band. And, you know, sort of a bit, that wasn't a really very comfortable experience, that, you know.
That would have been very hard for you
It
because
was very difficult. Because Mally had this Tom Jones sort of, Roy Orbison sort of voice, you know, like...
the big deep voice.
Yeah, he was the Elvis Presley of Wagga.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And here I come with this Johnny Anderson sort of pure sine wave voice, you know. It was just, ooh. We actually had one of the very early PAs. Yeah?
You built those things.
First one in Wagga. Gill's brother built the big bins, the big 4560 bins. We whacked the JBLs in. We bought Altec horns. We had to import Altec horns and H&H, you know, the first H&H amps in, solid state amps. We imported them in. You got them in for us. You know, and that was really quite exciting. We were sort of elevating. And a PV mixer, a 12-channel mixer that we could record with. And, you know, we put this whole thing together. And that was sort of... That
And
was
that
only
studio
happening-
out of
yeah.
North Wagga there.
It was only happening in the
straw.
city. And we sort of built it, remember? And all the amps would light up green. You know, and it was the green lights in this space that we were just sort of, you know, playing in. That's where they came
Yeah, it's called space rock for a good reason.
from. Yeah.
And at this stage, you're still at school, aren't you? You were playing at this stage, yeah?
Watching from the sidelines.
Yeah, watching from the sidelines, that's right.
We were the next generation down from you, not quite 10 years, but we were the next generation down, and I was at the same concert as Michael, and I was younger, of course. And when there was three bands that night, there was you guys, Kindergarten Cool, and
I See Daylight.
I See Daylight.
That's right.
And it was it was the first time in Wagga that there'd been a kind of conceptual piece done at the local theatre. And I would never thought for a million years that I would sort of end up in the stool, so to speak.
Melbourne, moving to Melbourne.
Yes. That was a great idea, wasn't it?
It was a good idea.
Well, it was actually Eric, who he'd finished his photographic degree, and he moved to Melbourne. And we said, well, if we're going to do anything with the band, we've really got to get out of Wagga. We've got to, we've got to
The
go
band got
further
serious,
afield.
it got
you know.
serious. It's like,
Or
okay,
tried
rather
to.
don't do it or you do it.
Exactly, but we were 20.
We had to have a shot, though.
And we went to Melbourne,
Yes.
and we were just young guys. We had no management, no way to meet management. We didn't really, had no business acumen at all.
No plan.
The first gig
No
we
depth
got,
of field.
the first gig we got was at a uni marijuana normal day.
And that took 6
Remember?
months.
And we walked in there to get the gig, and the guy pulls out a bong. It's
That's
9
right.
o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
The biggest problem then, I think, with Melbourne, we were into that sort of space rocky thing just when
Chisel.
Johnny Rotten and
Yeah.
punk, the whole punk scene broke.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get a gig in Melbourne because it was all turned punk and just aggro and the total opposite of what we were.
Yeah.
We were nice sort of Sambury fields and Hall and Notes, vocal harmonies, and it just turned into this angry anarchic sort of music. We couldn't get a
we
gig.
left. Yeah.
So we'd become sort of an anachronism at the age of 20.
But 12 months. We were there for 10 months or something. We recorded
How long?
10 or 12 months,
That's
no
how long
longer.
it was?
Yeah, it wasn't that long.
And we recorded, 8, 10 great songs, really good recordings in the Alan Heath studios.
Why did
You know
we
the
do
good
that?
thing, but the good thing about it, we really played a lot,
Yeah.
and we really got some chops together. I mean, I finally learned how to sing in Melbourne.
Yeah, no, I agree. And
We did
harmonies
play
and
a
all
lot.
that because we spent hours on that and the notes per second. We used to have races. Remember
That's
you and
right,
me,
that's
Mickle?
right. We
So
all
who
lived
could
in
play the
Rope Street
fastest?
and Kilda.
It
We
was
did
sort of
a lot
like
playing.
musical university.
I still
Yeah, it
wonder-
was. We did learn a lot.
Yeah.
And you did open our eyes with all that Hall and Oates sort of stuff and the whole vocal thing, which was another world to us because we really only cared about the music at that point.
Yeah.
And I still wonder whether those egg cartons are still glued to the lamp.
Well, I go there a lot. I was there last week. I was standing outside where we used to live. And I just wanted
Was it
to go in there.
55?
Yeah.
Was it 50?
Because we lived
I
in
don't know
Rope
what number
Street.
it was, but I remember the very front.
And Rope Street was where all the whores did their street walking. So every night,
Yeah.
the streets packed with cars. We had no idea. It was the only house we could rent.
And if you left the light on, the front light on at 4 o'clock in the morning, there'd be some drunk arsehole, knocking on
Knocking
the
on
door.
the door.
Trying to find a girl,
But it was a crazy little period, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was never going to last, but we had to.
Well,
But
we
it was-
ended up moving out to Cockatoo, was the bizarrest kind
Yeah, well,
of-
that was the next good
We
one.
went out to the Danglin Brothers and did what?
wanna get close to
hung
nature.
out in the
Close
fields.
to nature.
We didn't last long out there.
It was
before.
like, well, it's time to break up, boys.
Yeah.
You know.
And then we came back. Mick, Klaus.
I
back
just
to
jumped
Wagga.
in Klaus's car one day and we left.
We all came back to Wagga.
We just-
And we moved into a house in Wall Street over there in North Wagga, which you can't repair because of the floods.
Do you remember that day we were all sitting around the kitchen, just sitting around the kitchen, having a cup of tea, and all these motorbikes pulled up,
Yeah.
and they just made themselves comfortable
Yeah.
in that little
Yep.
dollhouse kitchen
Yep.
for a few hours, and we were very comfortable as well.
We were very comfortable.
Klaus reminded me of a time we played out at Coringle.
Lake Albert Hall.
Right, okay.
And they made a big mess of beer and food on the dance floor,
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't believe this happened.
Actually, I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, no, we won't tell
Yeah,
that
mate.
story.
Yes.
I ain't got nobody that I can depend on. I ain't got nobody that I can depend on.
So,
They were
We
good old
needed a
days.
new drummer and bass player.
yeah.
How old were you, Doc?
I was.
You and Max?
I was 18 years old. No,
18.
17 and a half, basically.
17.
Street urchin.
Yeah.
Go figure, this is how it happens. I'm sitting in the Johnny Mac playing in a covers band. Kelly Topo on the vocals. Like a big Maori boy that played for the Magpies. And he'd play footy hard Saturday afternoons and he'd come to the Mac Saturday night with bruises all over his face and sing like a nightingale. But we were doing cheesy covers the same as what you guys were doing in the clubs. I mean, that was the only way through, yeah? So I'm sitting there and you guys come in the room, right? These three guys. And I'm playing and I know who they are.
Oh, we went
Well,
down
we
to see
went,
you.
we went
That's
poaching.
right.
So-
Yeah,
so-
Let's go down there
so-
and see this kid.
The boys go head hunting.
Shane
We're
took
going
us
poaching.
So here I am, and we're about to start a Billy Joel song. Right. And these guys walk into the room. So we launch in, and I've never played a Billy Joel song so hard in my life. I mean, and I was just thinking about when you guys were talking there, because way back in at that concert at the Civic Theatre, as a young man, I visualised playing drums with you guys. You call me over. I come over. Hello. The boys talk about what they want to do, and they basically take me off the street there.
And we did the show, Rocky Horror Show with Terry O'Connell.
Right.
What was the Rolling Stones album?
Some girl.
Miss You was on it. Miss You was on it.
Some girls.
Song.
Yeah. And we did a couple of covers off that.
Beast of Burden.
That was the flavour of the band.
No, it was actually
And
sexy,
it was just
slow,
pumping.
take your time.
You know? Yeah, no, it was really, really good.
But I mean, through all of that, we were still sort of writing, and
That's
right.
there was always the need to sort of express ourselves rather than copy.
Yeah.
Point taken.
In fact,
And there's a
prolific,
big difference.
you were writing a lot more then, the band.
And we didn't get to do Sombrero last night. What a
No.
shame. We ran out of time.
That's the song that we didn't play.
That's my favourite too of
Oh
from
my
that
God,
era.
we didn't play it.
I know.
We
Yeah.
ran out of time.
Under my sombrero. Female kind, she's got a lot to say, whether you like it or not. She's here to stay. She's the love, never ever leave. She's together, but now like a pull it down, 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 pull it
Isn't it interesting? So you can write something. I mean, I never thought anything about that song or a lot of those songs. You think, oh yeah, we've just done it. But years back, you listen back to it and think that wasn't bad.
In fact, a lot of the time it takes those years to really appreciate it.
I find that interesting.
When you're so
Because when
close
you-
to it, it's sort of like,
Yeah, it's just okay, let's move on to something else. I'm sick of that.
Yeah. But when you do go back and go, wow, that had intricate construction, you know, it was.
Hey, Kim, what were you? What years are we talking here, fellas?
So
Where are we up to?
This was just before we really split up and went our separate ways for about 25, 30.
This is 78.
Yeah, 78, 79.
79, yeah.
79, 78, yeah.
And then I moved to Sydney.
And I moved away. No, I moved away first.
And we had the band.
Because I was,
I think we
pushing-
just went.
No, I was pushing to, like I said, we've got to go further afield again. Now let's start going over to Canberra and going up to Sydney. And I actually suggested we call ourselves the boys from Wagga Wagga. And that went down like a fucking red balloon.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
see?
Like an iron kite, mate.
Yeah,
But it
mate.
would have been a great brand, you know? I mean, it wasn't country.
Maybe
it
just
would have
call
been a great
yourself
brand.
Wagga Wagga, mate. You know? Just cut to it.
Oh, fuck yes. See? And that's why the band broke up.
But we all took off around that time, though.
Yeah, and Kim sort of came in probably in the early 81, in the early 80s anyway.
My connection to you, yeah.
Through Max, who knew, I don't know, how did Max know you and Hank?
Basically, Kim was my manager.
No, that was later.
Go again, Mick.
So, yeah, the Love Darts finish, and this is just before the Danglin Brothers formed, which is myself and Max Hopwood and Roger. And we'd finished doing stuff with Andrew, which is quite big rock and roll, and we're just singing at Max's place, and Roger says, well, bugger it, let's do country music. It's just like, so it's almost like, oh, bugger it. Yeah,
What about the
we'll have a go at
blues
country
band?
music, which almost horrified me. I had no other option. I thought, yeah, well, let's give it a go.
What
Let's
about the
try
Blues
it.
Brothers band?
That's way back, mate.
Oh, is it?
That's earlier on that Roger and I did together, yeah. So anyway, we didn't have a singer. This was the thing. We had the band there, but we didn't have a singer. It was sort of done with trepidation because I didn't know really much about country music. Rog had a bit more to do with it. And then we knew that Kim could sing. We all knew it. And so one of us, I'm not sure if it was me or Roger, rang Kim up on that night and said, look, we need to sing.
You
for this
interested
new
in joining
country
our band?
And he said,
No, he didn't. Whoever called me
It was
said,
me, I
Are
remember.
you interested in joining the band?
and your response
And I
was,
said,
no, I'm too old, I'm 35.
You've got to be kidding, man. I said, I can't do
I'm
that.
too old.
I can't do
Yeah.
that stuff that Andrew does. I can't do that shit, you know, with the fist in the air stuff.
Yeah.
I can't do it, man. So I said, I'm too old to do that shit. It would be embarrassing.
I'm not
But
really
it
famous
was-
for fisting the air.
No, sorry.
I actually.
But that was my response. I swear that was my response.
But I've done some fisting.
I'm being
while I've
honest
never
here.
done it.
And they said, and I think
Anyway, so you got the call, and your response was that you thought you were, hang on,
I
I'm
said,
12,
I'm too old to do
35.
this.
Now I'm
And,
But we
and then they said,
insisted?
we want to do country music, and they were insistent, yeah. And I think they knew I'd written some country songs,
Yeah.
because they said, oh,
Yeah.
we haven't got any material, you know, we haven't got any songs. We
Yeah.
can do a few covers, and Rog wanted to do some amazing Rhythm Aces
Yeah.
songs, and
And so we get into
I
our-
was well steeped in all that
Yeah.
stuff. I was pretty much steeped in the same kind of music as Rog. I got into roots music and was a major roots music fan, and so when Rog asked me, and I realised we had some kind of connection musically, particularly with me and Rog, and those kind of connections, we found some kind of common ground. Mick was just hanging in there thinking, well, you know, I can use my chops to play country
Well,
music
for
pretty
me,
well.
it was like, I was hanging out with Max and Rog, and I thought, yeah, I'll go this way, and let's see what we can do with it and stuff. And my only influence of country was playing Yakety Yaks years and years ago.
That's right.
Other than that,
I mean, Mick had the chops to do it. He certainly had
You
the
know,
chops to do it. But
and I
he
appreciate
wasn't
it and
somebody who
loved
was
it too.
really familiar with it.
but what was great, I learnt this fantastic genre of music that I wouldn't have been exposed to, and it was.
And Max did too. Man, Max was
Yeah,
a fish
Max-
out of
Max
water
is a
with that
What I
guy.
really
Yeah,
liked,
yeah,
what I really loved
yeah.
about the Danglin Brothers is, unlike a lot of country, you know, inverted commas bands, it was never a parody of country. It was
No.
a sincere
No.
attempt to play
Not with the
good
version,
music.
not
We
with
were
the version of
passionate about
6
it, man.
Days on the Road.
And
that's-
until the Dangs came along, my view of country music was a bit like, you know, Slim Dusty, you know.
Take the hold on everything. Now we follow losers, next we follow fools. Now we follow those thinking of one-way rider, one way down the road. Baby, I'm right beside you everywhere you go. Never sit please, trust no other fool. Don't go looking for trouble, it will come to you. Fire along the head, fire broken lines, leave me alone. Let go this time, one-way rider, all the way down the road. Baby, I'm right beside you, everywhere you go. One-way rider, one way down the road.
put a bit of coolness on the stamp of
Yeah,
country
fucking
music
oath, I reckon
in Australia in those
But
days.
even it
There
happens
was
today.
nobody doing it.
You know, I can't name any bands by name, but you know, there's bands come along. They come out of a sort of rock and roll background. They do country music and make fun
Like
of
a
it,
parody.
you know,
Yeah,
poke
yeah,
fun
they
of
do.
it, you know.
It's true. Heaps of
They
people
might do it
do
really
it,
well,
yeah.
but it's not really coming from the right spirit. Whereas the
No.
Dangs never had that, and that's I respect
No,
it.
we were really passionate about it, man. Me and Rog were really passionate about the kind of songs we wanted to sing and stuff like that, and I mean everybody was in the end. It became a real passion for all of us, and the response we got was such a shock to us, really. I hadn't played live music in 9 years.
We just went out and did it our own way, and within
they got me
short
down to the
time-
rehearsal room. I remember going down to the rehearsal room down at Billy's place, and we started playing, and it was just like, shit, this is really good.
Had a good sound to it straight away.
This is something's going on here.
And
this
people
is
really
pretty good.
picked up on that too.
So we dragged in a whole bunch of songs. I went through my record collection thinking we could do that, we could do that, we could do that. And what we started doing was taking these really fast 2/4 country songs, mostly bluegrass type tunes that usually played acoustically, with the mandolin doing the chop and holding the rhythm and holding down the groove. We put drums, rock, bass, drums, and electric guitar.
Depending on the
behind
tune.
that. It had this punk
yeah.
energy from Max's pump and bass. It had Mick with the chops to kind of blast it out. And it had Rog firing away in the background there. And man,
But
I
what
just
it
had
had,
to,
Kim,
it was
what
like
it had-
riding a fucking wild horse, man.
It also had this
You
lovely
jump on
element
that
of harmony.
and just try and hold on until you got to the end of the set. You know?
Welcome to rock and roll.
Yeah, vocals are good.
It was the harmony thing that really kind of people noticed
And
a
that's-
lot.
and we
Not
did
so much
that.
anything else. The harmony thing really kind of.
So we had this supercharged kind of country rock thing with 4-part harmony. We called up the Bondi Regis, which is a pub in Bondi.
Yes,
that
Klaus.
never had bands.
The Regis.
It used to have bands years and years ago, but it all closed down, and there was just a regular pub, a few drinkers in there.
that the other day.
And we couldn't think. We thought we don't want to go to the rock and roll pubs because we might be a complete failure. You know, we'll just hide away somewhere in the back of Bondi.
That's
you know,
where we
play a
started.
little pub, and if people like it, so we slowly get a bigger crowd. You know. So we went down there and we asked them if we could play, and they said, "Yeah, we haven't got a stage, but you can set up in the corner." And they, when do you want to play? And how much money do you want? And we said, oh, a couple $100 or something.
$5
like
grand.
that. Yeah, I don't know. I think
They will give
Rog
you
dealt with all that. And
Free
they,
piss and tucker.
and so we
$10.
booked in to play this gig, and we got a call one night. We're down at Billy's rehearsing, and they said, "Oh, what's the name of the band? We've got to put it up on the board here. You've got to play down here on Friday night. Yeah, we need a name." And we'd been in the studio fucking around, and we were doing, "Lord, I was born a dangling man.
We were just mucking around with that
Trying to make a
song.
living and doing the best I can."
Yeah.
We were
And we
singing
thought,
this thing
oh,
and
Danglin.
telling the Danglin
Makes
Brothers.
Danglin
And that was
Brothers.
it, man. We were stuck with it.
And then we started with the story with there's Dick and Darcy and the whole thing.
Yeah, then
behind
we
it.
made up this bullshit.
We
about
just
all of
made
the
our
names
own
beginning
kind of
with D.
history up that we were lost brothers and we'd met at a racetrack or something.
Oh, we had heaps of
We had a big
stories.
article and we just wrote all this stuff. People came out.
And yeah, we started playing the Regis, and crowds started coming. It just getting bigger, man. We were as surprised as anybody that people started coming down. And then we got rock and roll people coming down and asking us if we want to go play gigs with them. Like Paul Kelly would come down, or Ronnie from Died Pretty came down. You know, there's people in the cool scene that we weren't a part of at all.
Oh, Barnsley
We
had
were
us
so
at,
uncool,
Barnsley
man.
had us at Diesel's wedding. I mean, there was...
Yeah. we ended up doing all these things, gigs with Barnsley and gigs with, Concrete Blonde.
Wall of Voodoo.
We did Wall of Voodoo. We played
Danglin
gigs
Brothers
with
country band.
James Rain, Hunters and Collectors, and man, we were just
Yeah.
playing with
That was
everybody. We
weird.
became everybody's favourite support band because we were doing something nobody else did, and the musicians really liked it.
So that's how you got displayed, Mick. That's how they
Yeah,
all
the
met.
Danglers
Oh,
was
so-
great. Was great for me because it was
Man, Mick got seen by all the rock guys. and they
guitar
thought he was
kind of thing.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up meeting
Yeah.
Sean Kelly and all those guys, and
Yeah, ironic.
you
I'm
know.
not playing country, fuck that.
Yeah, well, look, it was like without even trying to. It was just really successful. I think it was just the spirit of the band that did it.
Yes.
And then the Danglin Brothers finished. I leave anyway. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yeah,
goes on for a
Mick,
while.
Mick lives, and this band goes on for another couple of years. Yeah.
Why did you leave, Mick?
I got this Jimmy Barnes call, so I thought, oh yeah, that'd be a great
It
move.
was after the Diesel gig.
Oh, I don't mean that, Jimmy. That was great. Fantastic. So here I am in this great band that I'm involved with and everyone loves to jump on board some great money, some prestige, and you know, sometimes just, you do those things. I mean, it was great doing it. It was big rock, but the choices were for me, you know, I was doing Absent Friends at the time as well, so it turned out for me not the thing I wanted to do. So after a short sojourn with him, I went back and did some Absent Friends, and wasn't in the Danglin Brothers had gone on to form another band with Rod McCormack. So that was the end of the Danglin Brothers for me until just recently.
Okay, just recently. Let's bring it right up to date. What's it been like these last few days?
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Really good.
Awesome. Really good fun. Just good fun.
I think we've got the same vibe and all of that, I reckon.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. This is DNA. This is actually
just to see
you know,
people again, you know, play
what it
again. I don't think TODE had done a public gig since 1977.
TODE stands for the original Delectable Ensemble, and it also, it's the name of a band, but I think that sort of encapsulates what it is. It's a journey, not a band. The original Delectable Ensemble, and that includes the Danglin Brothers, you know. I mean,
Well, I guess
that's
it's
part of the
kind
journey, you know.
It's one of the tentacles
The
of
love
the
dance.
ensemble.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
see,
right.
now Toad's emerged out as the EDOT, as EDOT.
Yeah.
Well,
Which
yeah.
So it grows. It
There is a
continues.
postscript. There,
Yeah.
there was a postscript in that.
New
sense, yeah.
Century Band.
Yes.
You know,
EDOT, of course, is TODE spelled backwards.
which is Bill and Klaus and Gill and Pikes.
Many miles away, looking for a place that we hope's better. Through the purple haze, I think I see a light that guides me there. Sifting through the pieces on the ground, we look but never have found. And so the dreamer stays, searching for the gift that he must share. And when the music fades, did it make you feel a whole lot better? Through the pieces on the ground, we've looked, we never have found. Many miles away, it's the great escape from your physical restraints. It's a dream you have, the hope you need, the cherished holy grail. There's a pot of gold at the rainbow's edge, I'll meet you there. Many miles away.
What Bill's trying to get here, mate, what he's trying to get here is like, why are we here? I mean, why did we come here? What's
Oh, for
it
love.
mean? You know, I mean, what is
One
the
word.
thing here?
Well,
That's
isn't
love.
it interesting? You know, we spent all these years, like we started out playing.
Yes.
Why? Because of the love of playing,
That's
not
right.
to make money
Love of
or
music.
The love of
anything.
music, that's what
And
it
then
is.
what happened with me anyway, and I'm sure for a few others, you go off and you got to chase the money to make a living out of it.
This is an interesting point.
And for me, it ended up in great disillusionment,
Yeah.
the industry side of it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then the whole thing's come back to now where we're just playing for the sheer enjoyment
Back to where we
of
started.
playing.
Exactly, that's what we all here.
And hell, this is where we should have been all along,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
remaining
But we
true.
couldn't stay in Wagga, working at Retrovision. You know,
No, no.
sorry, Johnny Crow.
So what do we do now? We do this this is the second time we've done this in a year.
Yeah.
And it was, the first time was just amazing because the first time we did it, we all looked at each other and with great trepidation. The carbon print from 20 years ago came back.
No preparation.
And this time, with a little bit more work, we didn't do a ton of work. And it was a journey, huh? It was a journey from the first count in to the last symbol of the gig.
But yeah, what I love, there was no bitterness there for it. Like it was just like we just after all these years, like there was no time. Like we just yesterday, and everyone just slotted in. That same sort of magic is still there, and I find that very interesting about the human
The human condition.
relationships. You know how certain bits of the jigsaw fit together. Yeah, and I've just
I think you bond really strongly at that period in your life. You know, that period in your 20s and your early 20s. You're really passionate about music and you bond together.
And this is
you're on a mission.
Well, that's right. But then it comes back to we all went to the same school with similar teachers. We have a similar philosophy, musical philosophy, and Wagga philosophy, and you know.
But through all those years, everyone kept playing. Everyone kept in touch
Well, I
with
don't know
music.
what it is.
You know,
In various
I mean,
forms, yeah,
whether
you're
you
right.
worked during the day, everyone stayed in music. Everyone.
And you should see Bill's CD
Same
collection,
place.
for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I bet. I was the only silly guy.
Gil
who
said the
started
other day, he
playing.
said, you know, in this I love this band because no one's ever told me what to play.
That's absolutely correct.
And no one ever really tells anyone what to play. It's all we're all very polite.
We won't
with
have
each
that.
other. You know,
We won't have that.
you know.
True democracy at work. Huh?
Yeah, and it sort of works. We let each other.
As I say, it's an ensemble, isn't it? A delectable
much easier.
ensemble.
It's
It's
a
much easier
delectable
to do.
ensemble, well said.
But having said that,
GG.
you've always been the musical director, Klaus, and we've all deferred to you.
Sure.
You know. I mean, Bill's often, you know, when he was in the band, he was often sort of squibbling with you. I know. No, it's not that chord. Well, it is on the piano.
But I mean, you know.
Well, look, here's an interesting thing with me and Bill, because we have a pretty close relationship now, sort of writing and stuff. Sometimes we don't even ask what chord he's playing, but sometimes when it's necessary, I'll say, Bill, what are you playing? I'm playing an E minor. And Bill will say he's playing on C sharp, something or other.
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds
And we just leave it that way. We don't change it.
That's right.
It works.
if it sounds good.
No, that's right.
Don't
it's,
change
that's this. It's the.
I mean, it's those dissonances and those weird harmonies that actually create a sound.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And if you play the same thing as me, it'll just be.
No,
That's
the
right.
same.
So you let your ears be the. Be
It
your
extends the
compass.
chord to this whole, new tapestry of sound.
Oh, there you have it. 30 years of playing.
And it's all about the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love of music.
Still thinking
love
the right
for
way
each
about
other,
music.
You know.
That's what I love.
I mean,
As you get older, you get more generous with each other. Don't you think?
We
as
were always generous
musicians?
with each other all
We're
the time.
always
mate.
pretty-
It was-
Well, there is a postscript to
Well, I
the
don't
story. There is a postscript to the story, and that's the new generation coming through, the Rhymes
True.
and the Hamishes
Yeah.
and the
Kids.
Sams
Henry.
and the
Yeah.
Henrys
Henry,
and
yeah.
you know. So there is and the Cades, of course.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those kids are coming through.
Wasn't that a great night to watch that?
Oh, last
Literally, we
night.
could step back and just let,
That was so cool.
let it all flow. And it flowed at 3 o'clock in the morning. They just kept going and going.
At one stage, Gil's in the middle of the stage, surrounded by 18-year-olds playing.
Oh,
brilliant.
School of rock,
It's a
baby.
bit intimidating, I tell you.
And I thought the most interesting thing for me, because it's been a big weekend for Rog. He's got the life membership award with the jazz club here.
Yeah.
He's worked his ass off. But you look at that stage last night. Roger's father, of course, was the jazz godfather of the Riverina. Roger's been the country godfather of Australia, and now his son, and he's playing up there a beautiful thing. Here's Roger and his son playing dub reggae, which is going to be the new generation. They're
Mitchell
doing
on
dub
bass,
reggae funk, and you can just see that coming through with strength and love and power from all the same places, boys. Well done.
Same thing.
And you know what, I reckon? it's so important to maintain the current day genre.
Yeah.
You know, like to move
Staying
from
up, baby.
rock to punk, and then from punk to country, or you know, that's the important thing. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
You don't get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, absorb it, and
It's all
Be
music.
part of it.
It's fuel, baby.
that's right. Or absorb it into what you do. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
The next bit, you know,
Right. Thanks.
move with the times.
Well, I reckon that sounds like an ending.
So we're going to start a
Yeah.
new band called the Somali Pirates.
Okay.
There's nothing left.
That's a PB, that one.
There's none of him left.
It's shred! Oh, baby, it's shred!
There's none of him left.
You know what I'm going to do?
Spontaneous.
Sounds great.
Spontaneous.
You gonna mark it?
Yeah. That's when it works for me. If you see that one, bit upsetting.
7!
Right?
Yeah, no, you got to build up for the 9.
Right.
We can dag you the older you get.
I'll be
Billy,
scoring.
don't start taking drugs, please. Don't do it, okay?
Oh, love it. Love it, love
That'll
it.
be the end of it.
If you'll have it.
There's no water on the spine. I've got